Hello, I'm John Boccieri, former congressman from Ohio's 16th District. Served nearly 10 years in the state legislature as a state senator and state representative. And presently, I'm the 757th Airlift Squadron Commander for the United States Air Force Reserve. I served in Congress from 2000, I was elected in 2008, and I lost in the 2010 general election.
When did you serve in Congress?
Served in Congress in 2009, January 2009 through January 2011.
What Congress were you in?
The 111th Congress.
Were you on any committees?
Yes, I was on the Transportation Committee. I was the Vice Chairman of the Aviation Subcommittee, and I was also on the Agriculture Committee.
Did you present or sponsor any legislation during your term?
Yes, one of the most important pieces of legislation after the Buffalo crash with Colgan Air. I was on the Aviation Subcommittee. We had oversight from the NTSB and the FAA, and we looked at that investigation and offered legislation. And one of the things I'm most proud of is that a bill that would require that upset and stall training recovery be included as part of the curriculum for all the regional airlines, as well as all the more established and tenured airlines, was introduced and passed and is now the law. And that law is beginning to take effect, and I think it's going to be very important to safety of air travel here in the future.
What was the hardest part about serving your district as a congressman?
I think one of the hardest parts was obviously representing almost nearly 1 million people, was getting to know everybody in the congressional district. I mean, I have limits on my time, and obviously I'd love to have shaken hands with everybody in the congressional district, but that was very much of a limitation, and the travel back and forth was difficult. I found it to be very enlightening. It served with some tremendous people in Washington, D.C. There's some fantastic people who really give up their time and serve the country because they want to try to make a difference. And so I've had just a fantastic experience. It was difficult in that losing that election. I felt like there was a lot of things I still wanted to do in Congress, but perhaps down the road.
What was the easiest part about serving?
The easiest part was showing up in Washington, D.C. and just walking through the Capitol. If you've ever been to the Capitol, it's just such a tremendous experience, walking around some of our national monuments and being able to serve with some folks who have been in Congress for a long, long time, and getting to meet the president and working on certain types of agendas for improving schools and putting folks back to work and really trying to make a difference in people's lives. I think that was the easiest part for me.
Do you consider the Affordable Care Act a success?
Yes, there are parts of it that are still being implemented, but by and large, I think some of the parts that have, at least from my perspective, have made a difference in people's lives already have been, the part that doesn't allow insurance companies to rule you out of insurance coverage because you have a pre-existing condition, parts of the Affordable Care Act that are helping to flatten costs. We have took great strides to make sure that we didn't discriminate against women who were, being charged more for their insurance premiums only because they were a female. That had to end. So we worked hard to make certain requirements that address individual lifetime caps on insurance. So some of those things are taking effect and really making a difference in people's lives. There are millions of people now who signed up for the Affordable Care Act, and there's still parts to be implemented, but I'm sure that there'll be some tweaking at the edges, but by and large I think it's going to make a difference in people's lives.
While you were in Congress, were you able to continue your reserve status in the Air Force?
Yes, I served in the Congress and also was able to serve in the Standby Reserve. I worked in the Pentagon and was working for strategic communications within the Air Force Reserve.
Thank you. And again, this was the lightning round, brought to you by a longtime asker who likes to go by Hey Baylor.
Hey,
since you've answered those, do you mind if I ask you a little bit about your time on the transportation subcommittee,
Sure.
because there was a bill, and I don't know if this was when you were there, but a move to give different states funding for HighSpeed Rail, which our governor refused for some reason.
Right.
Were you involved? Can you tell us?
Oh, yeah,
about
I'm a huge
issues
proponent
here?
of public transportation, in particular high-speed rail. I know Governor Strickland, when he was in Columbus, worked very hard to try to get some of those resources back to the state to allow high-speed transit from Cleveland, connecting the three major metropolitan areas of the state: Columbus, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. And obviously there'd be feeder routes off the side, but he was steadfast in his support of public transportation and high-speed rail. And the state, I believe, was going to receive about $300 million for this endeavor. And one of the first things that Governor Kasich did when he took office was turn that money back to the state. So it went to some other states, and some other states building high-speed rail now.
Do you think there's any chance of us getting another chance, maybe, to?
Well, that was one-time seed money that was going to be given to the states, and while we were in a great position to receive it, it's just unfortunate now that money has been dispersed through other states.
Were you on the transportation subcommittee because of your experience in the Air Force, or was it just a chance, like a luck of the draw type situation?
Well, I had petitioned and asked to be assigned to the aviation subcommittee because I've been flying with the Air Force for nearly 20 years. So I think it was a very good fit, and I was able to make a difference on that committee, I believe. And we reformed how regional airlines train their pilots, and working very hard to make sure that after that Colgan Air crash that we were putting the right procedures and processes in place to ensure that a disaster like that never happens again.
For anyone who doesn't know, could you refresh our memories about the crash of which you speak?
Yeah, it was a crash in Buffalo. Colgan Air, it was Continental Express. They had taken off, and there were some issues with icing, and the aircraft crashed just on its approach into Buffalo. And when the NTSB did their review, they found that the pilots weren't trained on the safety equipment in the aircraft. And we want to make sure that doesn't happen again. And the legislation that was put in place that I offered and became subsequently part of that bill that ended up being passed and signed into law would require now that regional airlines as well as legacy airlines train their pilots and all the safety equipment on their aircraft.
Here's another question from the web. Jessica asks, which TV show is Congress more like? House of Cards, Scandal, or The West Wing? Which one best represents the actual U.S.?
Well, that's a difficult question. I'm not very familiar with all of those programs. I could venture to say it's not like The West Wing, because there's such a variety and differences of opinion. I mean, when you think about, the members who serve in both the House of Representatives and the United States Senate, they come from all walks of life, different corners of this country, and they offer such a broad-based and different set of ideas about which way the country should go. I often like serving in Congress and my time in public office as this, Democrats and Republicans are kind of like being married for 17 years, and you're heading to a party where your wife and you may differ on how to get there. She may say, no, you need to take the back roads. No, we need to take the expressway. Somehow we always end up at the party, and we get it done when we need to. But obviously there's difference of opinion of how we get there. So using that analogy, I think, describes best how our Congress works and sometimes doesn't work.
Do you have any future political aspirations?
Well, yeah, I would love to serve down the road at some point. We'll see, if time and energy with respect to making sure that I have enough invested in my family. I mean, I have 5 young children, and that's very important to me, is making sure that I'm there for them. But also, when I do run for office, I want to make sure that I'm able to give 150%, as I believe I have in the past, to try to represent the people who have elected me.
Have you considered, I've heard buzzings about this, have you considered taking or accepting a position should Congressman Ryan win office in the state?
Well, I haven't heard of Congressman Ryan deciding to leave the Congress, but right now I'm really focused on just spending time with my family, and I spent almost a little over a decade in public service, so just want to make sure that I have the investment in my family and my marriage, and who knows, down the road maybe something will come up, but right now I haven't heard if Tim Ryan is ever going to leave Congress.
So how did you decide to get involved in politics?
Well, it was something that I never dreamed I would do, first off, but once I became involved and got active and trying to make a difference, I saw how quickly you can make a difference, and I thought that one of the ways to help improve people's lives was to put myself out there. I've had a career of public service, both in the military and in a public office, and I'd like to see that continue down the road. Obviously, wearing the uniform of the country is very important to me, and I find it a great honor to do that. Today's voting day. Let's encourage folks to get out there and vote and exercise your right to tell your government yes or no. It's something that our men and women who are serving in uniform put their life on the line, so that we have that ability and freedom to exercise our decision. And decision day is very important, and whether it's local elections or our state elections or national elections, your vote does matter. When I first ran, the very first election that I ran, I won by 72 votes. So I knocked on hundreds of thousands of doors, and 72 people made the difference in me, being able to serve in the United States Congress at some point down the road.